the Leeds That podcast. I am Darragh Cunningham, and I'm joined today by Leeds Live top journalist Isaac Johnson. Isaac, how are you?
Hi, thank you for the very flowery deduction. I really appreciate
Well, I think it's in order given the weather we're having right now. The flowers are in bloom, the sun is out. It's okay. Everything's going quite well. So,
the rest.
how's your summer been up until very recently when things went crazy?
Yeah. So it was busy before I went on holiday, which was typical Leeds, I suppose. And then a few things cracked off when I was on holiday, which obviously I knew about. And then ever since I've come back on Tuesday, everything's just been snowballing as well. So it's non-stop. But no, I had a good break, thank you. And but as ever in this line of work, you're always you can never fully switch off. You're sort of always aware of what's going on, and which we all know we'll get into. But yeah, no, it's been a hectic time, but also a very very good time as well.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think it's going to get a lot more hectic. I think the run in now is going to be fast and furious. No doubt we'll touch on a lot of that's already gone on, but I think there's going to be a lot more to go on lately. Again, it's funny though actually because obviously people wouldn't be as in touch with journos as much as we are in the pod through yourself mainly. So I'd be seeing stuff online and people are like, not sure if I believe him. Like is he spouting? And I'm like, trust me, Isaac is super connected. If he says it, it's coming from a place where there's some knowledge there behind it. Um, so with that in mind, I suppose we've got a lot to get through, and the fans are itching, and I'm sure people will throw in comments, and we have James in the background moderating, so he'll be putting up the comments as we go. So let's start with Sean Longstaff, topic of the day. Leeds had a third bid rejected by Newcastle. It did look set to be accepted.
Mm.
So the basic question, very open ended: what the hell is happening there?
Good question. Good question. Well, yeah, you are right. There were reports in Newcastle or murmurings anyway that they were heading towards an accepted bid. In the end, what's turned out is that they haven't accepted it. They have that was the third bid. Now there's certain things to say about that. The first is that at the moment it's not totally dead in the water. I think it'd be wrong to say it's totally dead in the water. Um, but obviously there is a bit of after a third bid has been knocked back. There's going to be obviously a bit of sort of a lack of optimism there, and I think it's just to see what Leeds do next. Do they go in again with another bid? Um, do they look elsewhere? They are assessing the midfield options. I mean that's they will always do that anyway. Um, Whether they will come in with another bid, we'll have to see. But Leeds have been stubborn, as it were, in terms of their price in this transfer window. And I put the word stubborn in online, and I just want to sort of clarify what I mean by that. I don't necessarily mean that as a bad thing.
Hmm?
Um, I think obviously there's got to be a bit of leeway. I think that's obvious, but at the same time, if Leeds don't think a player is worth a certain value, they're not going to pay over it. That's what the 49ers have made clear. Again, I think we'll go on to this, but in terms of this Diarra bid, um, they weren't too far off Strasbourg's asking price, but they weren't quite there, and they were obviously in the end. They didn't put in a second bid, put it that way, to raise the offer, and Sunderland came in with an offer that, quite frankly, blew Strasbourg's valuation out of the water, to be honest. But when it comes to Longstaff, it is at the moment just a case of wait and see. But the bottom line is that talks are not absolutely dead in the water. There are indications that the player is open to a move to Leeds, and he won't be quick to close the door on a potential move. But at the end of the day, he can't do anything unless Newcastle accept a bid. He's got a year left on his contract, and obviously that means in the next two Newcastle can only get a fee for him in the next 2 windows if they don't offer him another contract, which seems very unlikely given he only started 8 league games last season and none after the new year. And also, from Newcastle's point of view, they've got to think about pure profit and PSR. Academy player who'll go for pure profit, and that goes straight on the book straight away. They've just spent 55 million on Elanga, or going to anyway. So they'll need to balance the books there. So there is definitely a world where Newcastle sell, but obviously they want a bit of a higher price. And I think it's at the moment, if I had to hazard a sort of summary of it, it'd probably be call my bluff at the moment.
It'd probably be what?
It'd probably be a case of call my bluff at the moment.
Right. So, okay.
I mean, in terms of we set our stall out. Newcastle have obviously set their stall out by saying no to a third bid, but it doesn't seem like it's absolutely dead in the water. But obviously, there's, like I say, less optimism.
That's great. That's great to hear, though, because I suppose like news kind of yesterday was that Leeds are looking at other options, and I was a bit disappointed in that because, to be fair, I've been a Longstaff fan for a little while. I thought he was apparently he was on the market the season we got relegated, and I wanted to go get him into January because we had Weston McKennie and Mark Rocker midfield, who I thought were two of the worst midfielders to ever play for Leeds. And I was like, just go and get Sean Longstaff if he's going for £2 million. He must have been near the end of his contract then. Maybe they've given him a 3-year deal since, which would make sense in terms of the timelines. But it's great to hear that it's not dead in the water, because having missed out on Diarra and Siddiqui, I think it will be a real shame to miss out on the next option. And I'm not saying Sean Longstaff is actually the third option, because I don't know if he is or he isn't. There's probably there could be a scenario whereby they could have gone for Siddiqui and Diarra, got one of them, and still gone in for Longstaff. So to say third choice, nobody knows if that's true or not. I suppose from a perspective though of the fact that it was the third bid, and it's still quite low at 10 plus 2. What was bid 1 and 2? Do we have any idea?
In terms of what? Sorry, in
terms of the finances. Like if they're only offering 10 million plus 2 for the third bid, like how far off was the first bid?
Well, who knows? I don't have that intel, to be honest. But I think Leeds are probably looking at the fact that he has got a year left on his deal, and like I say, they're probably trying to say, look to Newcastle, he's only got a year. This is probably your best chance to sell him. We really want him. What's your move? Now, obviously, we've had a reply. But yeah, I think he'd be a fantastic fit for Leeds. 170 odd appearances in the Premier League, and he's played in the Champions League and scored, by the way, against PSG. Now, I know that's a few seasons ago, before they were the European champions, but that's no small team to score against. So he's got that as well, and he's a hard worker. He's a hard worker. He's someone who will do the hard yards. He's not a showy guy, and in relative terms, if Leeds can get him for around that fee, it would be, I believe, a good deal. But I do understand why Leeds would be apprehensive going too much over that, because he only got a year left on his contract, in conjunction with the fact that obviously they've got lower 3-year loss caps as well. So there's all that. Leeds have got to cut the cloth accordingly, and I know it is frustrating for fans, but the 49ers are pretty solid in their mindset when it comes to approaching players. Now, like I say, that doesn't mean there isn't any wiggle room. Clearly there is, because they submit the first bid and a second bid and then a third bid for Longstaff. So, but obviously there's a ceiling to the targets that they're looking at.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously an interesting point. I suppose when you mentioned earlier, to kind of a game of chicken, called my bluff. The danger there is that someone else swoops in. Does a Burnley or Brentford and Everton, Crystal Palace, anyone in the Premier League, probably a bit more established than Leeds, could just swoop in, easily drop 15 million on an established Premier League player, know that he'll fit into the squad and do a job if called upon. So there's probably needs to be some urgency there. Personally, I would like to see Leeds show some desire. Like if he's the player, go make him feel wanted. Like say, yeah, look, we're gonna come get you. We're gonna pay the extra few quid because we think you're gonna be a big player for us. Because I think there is an element of selling the club to the player as well, isn't there?
Playing devil's advocate, do you think that the 3 bids already sort of say that, in the sense of we really. I'm not saying either. I'm just playing the devil. Like,
Yeah, no, I get it.
From the club's perspective, they'll say, look, we clearly do want him. He's and as well, all the soundings that we're getting, that Longstaff is open to a move to Leeds at the very least. So on their front, that's what they might say. They might say, we've made our intentions clear. Now, if the player, if he is very much open to a move, or just say beyond open to a move, if terms have been, because there was a report from the Athletic that said that terms were in place. Now, how some people construed that as agreed, and to me, I read that as if it's in place, it doesn't necessarily mean it's inside on the dotted line. But what it could be, and this is just me surmising, is that they've said to Longstaff, look, these are the terms we're prepared to give to you. This is the deal we're prepared to give you. And then Longstaff's camp probably gone, okay, good. That is something I would be willing to accept. And then it's about thinking, do I want to actually move to Leeds or not? So it could be that kind of scenario. But yeah, but I think I totally get the notion that from fans that Leeds want Leeds to show a bit more ambition.
I think the problem with it is we've been burned before. So
yeah,
there was a situation a few years ago where we had a choice between Frank Lampard and Seth Johnson, and apparently we decided that we wouldn't pay the 9 million for Frank Lampard. Look how that worked out. And then there was a Lewis O'Brien situation that dragged on. Leeds were offering 5 million. I think they wanted 6 or 7. We were in the Premier League. What was an extra couple of million? And we ended up being really short across the middle as injuries struck that season. And so we kind of have a history of being, as you might call it, stubborn. I agree with you as well. It's going, it's in a good way though. It's protecting the finances. You've got a threshold, and you're saying that, and usually there's a reason behind that. Like if we're looking to get Longstaff for 10+2, it's probably because we want to pocket 30 million on a striker to spend on a striker or something that's going to cost a little bit more. So I don't think there's any lack of ambition in that perspective. But we have been burned in this game before, whereby we try to hold out, and in the end someone just swoops in and takes the job from us. So I think that's where a lot of the trepidation is coming from Leeds' perspective, in that if we put in 1 bid, we put in 2 bids, we put in 3 bids, just give them what they want. They can't be far off the 3rd bid. But given that you've said it's not dead in the water, I think that's going to give Leeds fans a lot of hope, because yesterday it did seem like it was going.
I mean, just to clarify, obviously the optimism levels were there before, and now they're probably there, but that doesn't mean it's a total sort of game over. It's not end game, put it that way.
And I just seeing the comments there, Tony is saying, given Longstaff has been so loyal to Newcastle, if he wants to go, they should maybe be looking to do him a favour. And that's that's exactly what I would be thinking as well. They could take a couple of million hit on it, on the PSR, given he is an academy product. It's pure profit, and he's done a great job for them. See him off into the sunset in a way we did with Calvin. We took a slight hit in that because Man City was the only club he wanted to go to. We did the same with Rafinha. I think clubs do have a bit of a moral responsibility there, that there's not much loyalty seen in football, and when a player shows loyalty to a club, I think there should be something on the back end, but it's not always like that, is it?
Yeah, well, it could be something that happens later down the line potentially, and the reason why I say that is because Newcastle have to be mindful of the homegrown squad quota in the Champions League, and they haven't got enough at the moment. Of new signings will help with that, but at the moment Longstaff is one of only a few within that quota, so they will be mindful of that. But it is literally a game of wait and see, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay, and moving on then. So we leave Sean Longstaff in the Sean Longgrass. Just think about the lack of confidence, right? So it seems to be we're moving on, but we're not confident. Diarra, we've put in a bid, but we're not confident. Stack, we've put in a bid, but we're not confident. I'll ask you with Stack properly later. It just seems to be this continuous cycle of we've put in a bid, but we're not confident. Is that a bit of spin? Is that like a decision that was made maybe from a marketing perspective earlier on the season with regards to comms? Or why are we not confident?
Right. So the sort of line for the stance from the 49ers is that they are ambitious. So they are going to go for players who they want, who they know they probably have a little small chance of getting, on the off chance that it comes off. And for example, Rafinha was an example that was brought up. He was one that he's a Ballon d'Or contender. You know what I mean now, and so he was used as an example. You can use all the adjectives you want. You can't win the raffle if you don't buy a ticket, all that type of stuff. And so that's very much their approach, because they know they need the quality. So yeah, so that's in terms of them looking for new players, and perhaps them not being as optimistic. That's probably why, to be honest.
So maybe it's a thing for it's not so much a strategy as it's our when we're trying to reach for the better players, genuinely we're not overly confident these are players we're hoping to attract as opposed to expecting to attract.
Because as you've seen with a few players already, they've all had competition. I mean, even I think at least 3 of the 4 signings that Leeds have signed, they've all had competition from rivals. Obviously, Diarra had competition. Obviously, Siddiqui, and Stack. He as well. He has competition for him as well. So Leeds are not going for low-hanging fruit. Leeds are trying to go for players who they think will keep them in the Premier League. Ultimately, there's no point just signing players just for players' sake, and especially in the chase for a striker as well. You've got to get it right first time, and ultimately the strikers and the players that they'll go after will have multiple bids on the table, and they'll want the players themselves will think, right, I'm going to wait around a bit and deliberate over my decision before choosing where I want to go and which offers the best. And that is going to be the tale of this window, I think. It's no surprise that the likes of Sunderland are after the same players as Leeds. They're in the same position. They've got the same loss cap. So there's all that comes into it. But it is very much. I mean, one adage that one source told to me was like, well, if you think a girl's really hot and you want to try and go out with them, you got to at least try and ask them out. Otherwise you'll never pull them, so to speak. That's one example.
And sometimes you have to wait till the very end of the night when they're really drunk. I'm not advocating for that, by the way.
But yeah, so that's very much it. It's shoot for the stars basically, and if not, we'll try and get the moon. I don't think it's a bad philosophy, but I 100% get the optics on it. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, if Leeds are after a player, they're like, we're not keen, but we're going there. Obviously, that's going to be frustrating for fans. It's going to be annoying, and I totally get that. But at the end of the day, Leeds need to get the quality to stay in the Premier League, and this is going to be the story, I think, for a little while.
And I suppose moving into things a little closer to home then. So one of the players that is back in the building is Jack Harrison. A guy who, again, I put my hands up. I actually think he's a decent squad player for us. He's coming in. He's not costing us any money. He's been in the Premier League for 5 years. I get it. The issue Leeds have with their fans. I'm not going to go back into all that. Is there any murmurings from inside Leeds? Like, obviously, when Thomas Frank went into Spurs, he straight away nailed his colours to the mast. I want to have a look at Solomon. Do we have any murmurings from inside Leeds? Does Farke want to have a look at Harrison? Because my take on it is that Harrison would be very much a Farke style player.
Yeah, in terms of any leads we've had, honestly, nothing at the moment. Don't know either way. At the very least, obviously, that's now obvious is the fact that Everton didn't enter discussions initially over a permanent move. We say that at the very least. Who knows? Honestly, I'm sorry to not be able to shed much light on that, but Farke has had a pattern of welcoming players back. I will say this is slightly different in the fact that he's not some might say he contributed to the relegation, and then once Leeds were in the Championship, he carted off for two seasons. I understand that, and it's not fantastic. And at the end of the day, Farke wants people who are going to be committed to Leeds as well. But that's not to say that that's any indication what's going to happen. I don't know. I think the best case scenario is that Harrison does go, for both the player, for the fans, and for the club. I think it's just best for everyone if there's a clean break. But at the same time, in the moment, there's a bit of a lack of options on the left wing, so they just have to be a little bit careful, because obviously Solomon's probably not going to come back, or definitely not anytime soon, and probably not at all if I'm being totally honest. Got Ramazani, but he only started, I think, 7 Championship games last season, and he fell out of selection favour towards the end of last season. You don't really want someone like, well, it'd be a worry if he was the starting left winger.
I think Nanto would be the one.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you a question. Who would you play? I'm gonna say out of Harrison and Ramazani on the left, but it seems you're gonna say Nanto.
I think Nanto's better on the left than he is on the right. I think he's been forced out to the left or out to the right over recent seasons because we've had a good option on the left. He did his best work at Leeds when he first came in and played on the left. I know he wasn't a regular starter last season, but he finished the season really strongly. Scored important goals. I mean, everyone forgets his goal against Plymouth. You know, he's the one who scored the equaliser against Plymouth. You know, I think he scored maybe 5 or so in the last 10 games or something along those lines. He was on fire. I'd definitely give Nanto a chance on the left. I think he'd be chomping at the bit. But I would equally have no qualms playing Jack Harrison. And the reason being is I just think he's a solid option. I don't think he's going to pull up any trees. I don't think he's going to be a superstar. But Farke can be conservative at times. And I think as a Premier League manager, you need to know every player is going to put in a shift. Every player is going to track their runners. Every player is not going to shirk responsibility, you know, passing the man off the way Mark Rocky used to do. Like the amount of times I watched Mark Rocky track a runner halfway and then point to someone else to take him from there on, it infuriated me. Harrison ain't going to do that. And I just have a feeling that Daniel Farke will really, really like Jack Harrison and what he brings to the table, because he can be trusted. You know, Bielsa trusted him, Jesse Marsh trusted him, doesn't count for anything, he doesn't know football. Gratias trusted him, Allardyce trusted him, Deutsch trusted him, Moyes trusted him. Every manager he has trusts him. So I can see Harrison forcing his way into this team. But personally, as your question being, I would start with Nanto and let anyone else work their way in.
Yeah, well, no, that's interesting. I think what it will boil down to, or partly boil down to, is the playing style for next season and who matches that basically. Now, what I've been hearing is basically that obviously Leeds are going to be more conservative next season. They're going to be more careful and cautious. But that doesn't mean they're going to neglect what happened last season, the start of last season. They're still going to try and be progressive. They're still going to try and have possession as well. But obviously, they're going to be way more transition phase next season. Because Leeds going to be on the back foot and they'll need to switch quite quickly. So in terms of wingers, pace has got to be one. I think reliability, yes, has got to be one. The willingness to run has definitely got to be one. There is a world where Jack Harrison stays, but I'll let fans decide whether they think that's the perfect world.
Indeed, and I think that'll be very much a split camp, because I think even on the Leeds that amongst the three of us, we're all undecided on that one as well. Few interesting questions coming in actually on the comments.
Okay.
One there from Russ. Isaac, what's the latest on the goalkeeper signing? So, any chance of a goalkeeper signing before the Man United friendly?
Right. Never say never. What I do know at the moment is that they haven't picked a number one target as yet, but they are having extensive discussions. So it's not a case of, what I don't want to portray is it's a case of not selected the number one, not working on it. They definitely are. They've got a number of options that they're looking at, and goalkeeper is high up on the 49ers agenda. So they're definitely working on it, but they have got a few few options we're looking at. One of them is Lucas Perry from Lyon. Now, obviously, Lyon were relegated initially, but it becomes slightly more murky now because Lyon have been reinstated back to League One. For those who don't know, basically, Lyon had financial troubles and they were initially relegated to the second tier of French football, but on appeal, they've managed to get back in. However, under really, really tight financial restrictions, so they probably will have to sell. But obviously, the fact they're in League One means it's give them more hope that they can keep their best players, or some of them at least. So I'll be interested to see how that one plays out. As for, and I can never pronounce his surname, I think it's Milinkovic-Savic, the Torino goalkeeper.
Spot on.
The 6'8" giant from Serbia. Leeds, sorry to beat this line again, but Leeds are not optimistic about that, because basically there is, well, it definitely was at the time of I had conversations, Napoli were definitely interested in him, and Manchester United also had interest in him. And whilst there are rumours he might have a release clause, in terms of like wages and bonuses, it's expected that the financials, because of the interest of Napoli and Man United, that it will just go a level that's just a bit too much for Leeds, basically. So I think with all these signings, and I think with all these players that Leeds might or might not get, or probably will not get, it doesn't mean that it's the end of the world. And what I mean by that is, look at Tanaka. I mean, I think I've said this before. Tanaka initially wasn't going to be the first choice. He was a late window signing, and he's one of the best players last season, if not the best player. So it really, really is not the end of the world to miss out all these signings. Now, for example, Diarra, only time will tell whether 30 million is a really good deal for Diarra. If 30 million is absolutely, over the market for Diarra. Ultimately, next season we will see. But in terms of the goalkeeper, it's definitely a priority, 100%. But they're just not quite honed who they're going to sort of like attack and gun for yet. And that's probably a little bit to do with the goalkeeper merry-go-round that happens. That's just natural. Yeah. So again, Leeds need to nail the striker. They need to nail the goalkeeper. There's no point just getting anyone in for the sake of it. It's got to be the right quality.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And Milinkovic-Savic, he's one of the best keepers in the world. So I wasn't hopeful on that one myself. His stats are absolutely outrageous. Good point in there from Alan, though, about how can we not know who our number one target is when we've had months to prepare. You might answer this as well. For me, it's probably a case that they have a number of targets. Keeper isn't a position that needs to be intricated into the team. Like, a keeper can just kind of come in and just slot in if they're a decent keeper. And there's probably 20, 30, 40 keepers around the world we could get in who are probably just as good as each other. So maybe it's a case of, and you can disagree with me or agree with me, waiting a little while and getting the best player for the best value when it comes to that particular position.
Yeah, I think, and this goes for all positions, by the way. So what we do know is that the 49ers and the recruitment team are, for each position, they're getting the same type of player in a certain position. So, for example, with as you've seen with the centre back with Beal, obviously really tall guy, good in the box. Bornau, I know he's going to be a backup, but he's a similar type of player, not as good as Beal, but definitely of that ilk. The same applies for the striker. Obviously, Nemecha's come in quite tall, runs a bit, puts his body about. Would not be surprised in the slightest if the marquee signing that comes in is over like 6 foot and a big bulky sort of guy. And it's the same with the goalkeepers as well. So the goalkeepers are looking at Perry, obviously Milinkovic-Savic, all tall keepers, all got fantastic XG. In the season before last for Perry, when he was in Brazil, okay, you can say what you would like about the Brazil league, but he had an XG of 13, which meant he kept out 13 shots that should have been goals, which is insane, which is incredible. So you look at certain metrics in certain positions and you think, okay, that's the type of signing Leeds are going for. So, okay, whilst they might not necessarily have honed on the number one target yet, by looking at who they are interested in, you can sort of work out what type of goalkeeper they are after.
And I suppose looking at before we move on to the internals, one more player Leeds are interested in is Anton Stack. Again, another one where I think it's going to be 20 million plus, and we're not too hopeful. A lot of competition. Is there any inside info on that one?
There is, in the sense of that Leeds expect it to be a drawn-out affair, which won't really hand to them necessarily. A number of clubs are interested in him, again, as ever. Not totally confident on that one either. Again, that is very much a case of shoot for the stars type signing, really. Well, maybe that's slightly extreme, but it's definitely one that Leeds would class as a fantastic coup if they get him. So don't expect anything anytime soon on Stack, but the transfer market moves quickly. So, let's see. But I wouldn't personally expect anything immediate, to put it that way. And Leeds are anticipating a bit of a stretched affair on that. So sorry to sort of dampen the mood on that one again.
Seems to be the way of things. In fairness, the vibe I'm getting from you is, as much as like fans might want to have business done early, and maybe the manager would want to have business done early as well, that you get the players in early, integrate them into the squad. That would certainly be my preference. Unfortunately, it's just not quite the way it goes, because other teams also have their priorities as well, and they maybe don't want to let the players go too early. Probably similar with us. We probably don't want to, if Jack Harrison is to go, I can't imagine we want to let him go now and risk being short when the time comes, if we can't get maybe Solomon back, who by all accounts, and you mentioned you don't think he's coming back. I think I've spoken to a few Spurs fans who don't think there's any way he can possibly stay. He's just so far down the pecking order. So that's again one that might develop later in the window.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
The vibe I'm getting from you though is that it kind of generally, we're actually probably in a good place. We just need to be a bit patient as fans, that things will develop as the snowball picks up speed as it goes. The global snowball, as in players are plucked from somewhere else. Someone pays a big fee for someone who could then sell 2 or 3 players at a cheaper rate, and that moves on, and then they bring in extra players, and that just frees up the whole market. And that just hasn't quite kicked off yet.
No, exactly. And in looking at the grand scheme of things as well, in terms of the whole football world, obviously the Club World Cup's not even finished yet. I know Leeds aren't exactly going to get anyone from Chelsea necessarily, or PSG who are in the final, but what it does do, that delays the decision, and delays the knock-on effect of them taking players from other clubs, then other clubs trying to find it, and it's all that. And most clubs are only just coming back for pre-season now. Leeds only just came back in on Monday. Yes, the Manchester United fixture isn't too far off. There is still a little bit of time to go until the first game of the Premier League season, and the window doesn't shut until September 1st, so that there is time. However, I absolutely do agree that Leeds really need to get their core players in before the season starts, really. Sometimes can't be avoided, but you don't really want to be starting that first game against Everton without two of the 5, at least 5 core signs they're looking at. Obviously, Biel's one, and Gudmundsson's another. So, yeah, that's sort of that. Yeah, that is the vibe. Yeah.
Perfect segue, Isaac. Well played. So actually, yeah, a little bit of good news then. So we haven't had you on since we've signed Biel. Since then, we've got Biel, Sebastian Bornau, Nemecha, and Gudmundsson. Let's have a chat about a few of those. So let's start with Biel, the big signing, I suppose, in more ways than one. What can you tell us about him, and what can we expect from him?
Yeah, big lad, obviously, as everyone knows. Good in well, obviously in his own box, but by all accounts, might be a decent guy in the other box as well. I mean, he had a little stint as a striker. Not that I expect Farke will start playing as a striker, but yeah, he will be coming in ahead of Strauch, and club chiefs have said actually that they're really happy that they've managed to get their back four sort of sorted so early. Obviously, they've not got the goalkeeper yet, but basically, we know what the back four will probably be, which is obviously Bogle on the right, Gudmundsson on the left, and then Rodon and Biel in the centre. So I think that is a good win there for Leeds. Yeah, there's loads to say about Biel. he agreed to a move to Leeds at least a week before the papers were signed. A fee hadn't been agreed, or the last sort of like small print on the fee hadn't been agreed until slightly later on. But the Newcastle sort of interest that was touted wasn't really serious, to be honest. Udinese were resigned to the fact that he was probably going to go. I mean, there were rumours, there were reports that he told a few teammates that he planned to go. So he very much wanted to come to Leeds, which is great, which is what you want. And this is what Farke wants as well. And it's the same with Gudmundsson in terms of, he knew the size of the club. I don't know if anyone's seen his interview where he said he was in holiday in Crete in a hotel and he saw loads of Leeds fans and Leeds shirts around him. He thought, oh, that's a good sign. Yeah, so that's when he first heard of Leeds' interest. He was at the hotel and he saw loads of Leeds fans, and he got a call saying, oh, by the way, Leeds are interested. So, yeah, that's a little anecdote.
Wow. Leeds fans everywhere. Leeds everywhere.
Yeah, and obviously in Scandinavia as well, obviously Leeds have got a really big following. So he knew all about the size of the club, and he is, I'd say he's more defensively astute signing than Firpo, but he is still an attacking-minded left-back. He's not just going to sit in the pocket necessarily. So I think both have the potential to be really good signings. Now, the proof will be in the eating of the pudding, of course, but yeah, well, club chiefs are very happy that they've got the defence sorted, and I think Farke will be as well, to be honest.
Yeah, to be fair, I think that is a really good strategy, and Adam says it there. Sunderland have gone heavy on the midfielders, which they probably need to do, having lost. I think the guy who scored their goal to win the promotion was on loan, so he's gone.
Yeah.
And then Bellingham has obviously been overpricedly sold to Dortmund.
Yes, that's a very important point, because obviously Sunderland got a load of money in from the Bellingham sale, and that is going to play into it. There's also the fact as well that Sunderland, well, there's several things to say really, but Sunderland's core squad is nowhere near as good a quality as Leeds, so they had to spend big. They've had to sort of go full hog quite early on. In terms of like a football point of view, I'm actually quite glad they're having a go. Not that they've stolen Leeds targets, don't get me wrong, but in terms of like, they're not just, because I don't think promotion would have been so early in their plan, and so this has come as an unexpected sort of mega boost for them. And so what's really sort of encouraging from a football type of view is the fact that they're not just thinking, right, we're going to be in the Premier League for this season, go back down, then we'll try and come back up afterwards. They're giving it a good crack, but at the same time, that means is if they do get relegated and they've got all these players on big wages and they've spent a lot, that is a bit of a risk as well. Although having said that, they don't have players on as big of wages initially as Leeds have had as well. So there's all that to play with. But the bottom line is that in terms of the Sunderland Leeds sort of battle that's going on, is Sunderland very much need to build in their core squad midfield, for example. And typically midfielders cost more, wingers cost more than defenders as a rule anyway. And that's sort of part of the course. But yes, maybe a little bit of the reason why Leeds are just slightly more hesitant at the moment is because they need to get some folks out the door as well to make sure the books are balanced. And obviously, the Vos's come back from pre-season at the moment. Now, Voba's gone, but for PSR reasons, basically, just it works that alone is better because they haven't got enough. No one was willing to pay what Leeds needed for him, basically. So yeah, he's gone. But yes, so Sunderland have sold a big player. They've got big money, and also they need to build their core squad. Leeds are not in as much of a dire strait as well.
Well, speaking of the core squad, again, I suppose just to speak to Leeds fans, Sunderland have obviously bought players to go straight into the team. Any of them get injured, and when Afghan comes in, the players coming in to replace them are really, really poor. One of the focuses we've had early on in the season has been in raising the floor of the squad. If we look at Nemecha and Sebastian Bornau, they're coming into the squad. What do you make to both of those signings? Maybe start with Nemecha.
Yeah, I think he's essentially a free hit, really. he's only signed. He's 27. He's only signed a 2-year deal, so it's not exactly loads, and that is because of his injury history. He has had a bit of a had a bit of a time over the past few seasons with injury. You can't shirk that. But at the same time, he is, he's a German international who's got 7 caps. He is a player who has played in the Champions League. He's played X amount of games in a top flight in Europe, a big top 5 league, in the Bundesliga. And yeah, like I say, he's a free hit. He's a big, bulky guy. He could probably do a bit, if you want to throw someone on who can perhaps ruffle up a few feathers. He looks like the guy. Now, whether he'll play a lot, probably not. He'll probably be third choice because he'll have another marquee striker coming in, Peru second, then him third. And so that will naturally reduce the risk of injury. And yeah, so a free hit, let's see how we go with him. Bornau, I think he's just basically a direct replacement for Wöber. In a sense, he'll be fourth choice, but an upgrade on Wöber, I think, on current. Like you said, it raised the floor of the squad, as does Nemecha. And that's just as important as raising the ceiling of the squad. Because what happens when your best players suddenly become unavailable, or they need a rest, or you need some players who can do an ample job when they come in. And both of those are not bad shouts in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, I think I speak for all Leeds fans here, we all remember the days when Bielsa went to Liverpool and Man City and had to play kind of 9 established outfield players because he didn't have 2 more on the bench. The other 2 were kind of debutants and youth players. And we just don't want to end up in a situation with that. I think sometimes we can see the squads and teams that Bielsa had to play, and you're looking at it going, how did we play a team like that in the Premier League? So to get in players like Bornau and Nemecha, because if the worst comes to the worst and they have to play, you're like, yeah, that's fine. Not world superstars, but it's fine. And if they hit a bit of form, why not?
And like I say as well, like the types of players they are similar types to the players who will bring in or have already got. So Nemecha, especially Bornau, he's very much of the sort of BO sort of ilk. Obviously not as good, but yeah, that's the.
And you mentioned there that you reckon Nemecha will be third choice. Is there any expectation on Joseph this season? Is he likely to stay and fight for his place? Is a sale likely, or maybe a loan move? I'm personally, and I'll put the cards on the table again, I think Matteo Joseph is going to have a good career. I'm not convinced it's going to be at Leeds. So personally, I'd be looking to loan him out, let him increase his value, because I think he'll do well wherever he goes. And then look to sell him last season, learn from where we made a mistake perhaps on Charlie Cresswell, who's another player who was always going to do very well.
Yeah, I think that's a good assessment. Just to say, by the way, sorry if I missaid it. I think Bornau will be the fourth choice. I think Straub's got to be the third. Yeah, I think that's pretty good analysis, to be honest. He's not going to get more minutes at Leeds next season, which is what he said he wants. By the way, he's not back in pre-season training until next week because he's taking part in the under-21s, the European Championships with Spain. So that's why he's not back yet. So it's not like anything's happened yet. He still needs to speak to the club about his future. We know Real Betis is still interested. Strasbourg are watching him. And both of those can offer Europe, both of those can offer more game time. Leeds need to build up more finances, especially if they're going to get another, if they're going to get a big name striker in. If I was a betting man, I'd say Joseph's going to go. In my opinion, I think he's clearly set a stall out in the sense of I want more game time. It's not going to happen in the Premier League, especially now with Nemecha in, who isn't exactly going to come in to be fourth choice. So, yeah, I think we go for PSR reasons as much as game time reasons.
Speaking of PSR, Adam has a question there with regards to Stroke. I suppose does the emergence of Bornau put Stroke in a bit of a position where there's a lot of profit could be made on him. Personally, I wouldn't like to see it, but do we think that that's an option, or are Leeds like categorically no? He's part of our plans. He's vice captain. He ain't going nowhere.
I would be shocked if Leeds look to load him out unless offload him, unless he got to the end of the window and they were like, oh, okay, we need to build up some PSR, and then they're like, okay, we'll have to just take a cut of losses basically. The other side of the coin is that Strout looks at the situation and thinks, I'm gonna lose my place in the starting lineup probably. And do I want to do that? If a Dutch club comes in for me who can offer Europe, do I go there? From his end, I think it's probably more likely that if he does leave, it'll probably come from his side and his wanting game time. But at the same time, he has had 3 major setbacks in 2 years. So clubs will be looking at that. Other clubs will be looking at that if they are thinking of going in for him. Also, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for Struijk himself just to have a season in the Premier League. Okay, you're not first choice, but you are playing Premier League football. The objective, one of his objectives next season has got to be, can I get through a season without an injury? Because if he does get another injury this season, like a long-term injury, then he's at risk of, building a reputation for injury, which is what nobody wants, no player wants. And also, by the way, Struijk as a third choice is a fantastic position for Leeds to have. It really is. I mean, I think Leeds have done right in getting the centre-back in. I think most people would have agreed that Leeds needed a new centre-back, but I certainly don't think that means Struijk needs to go. I don't think Leeds will be even thinking about that, really, unless it gets to the end of the window and PSR is tight or the player wants to leave and a club shows interest. But from Leeds' point of view, I can't really see that being instigated by their end initially.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I can't see Struijk leaving, and I also can't see him even wanting to leave. I think players always back themselves, so I mean, I would hope he'd see Bial coming in thinking, all right, fair enough, you buy him, but I'm going to show you, I'm the better player.
Yeah, exactly. There's that 100%. But also as well, if Struijk does go, then you've only got really 3 proper centre backs and that's not enough. You need at least 4.
Boy again, yeah.
No, I know Ampadu can play centre back, but honestly, he is so vital at number 6 next season. He can't really play the centre back.
Yeah, no, 100%. I suppose speaking just, I'm aware of the time there. We'll wrap up fairly soon. I suppose in terms of outgoings, I'll throw these 4 names at you, and you can give us your opinion on them. So, is there any way back, or are we likely to hold on to or sell Joffy, Greenwood, JB, and Schmidt? You can take them in any order you want. I can read them out again if you want.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. So I think Gelhardt and Greenwood are inevitably going to go. I mean, they couldn't get in the side last season, so they're not going to get in the side this season. It's just a fact. And Leeds really can't afford to loan those type of players out. They've got to sell them, really. They won't get much for them, but it'll be something, and that's fine. Schmidt, I think if another fullback comes in, he's got a decision to think about. He's already hinted that if he is going to get less game time than last season, next season, he will consider an exit. I really hope that doesn't the case. I think he's got potential. And I think the setup the Leeds have got now is fine, because he could play on either side. Byron could play on either side, so they've got both fans covered essentially. Leeds might want to bolster another fullback potentially, but that will depend on their stance on Schmidt and whether they think he is ready. At the end of the day, now he's a Swiss international, so he's clearly got something about him, and I think he has impressed a lot of fans, to be honest, during his showings. Obviously, the Premier League is a different kettle of fish, but with him, I think if I was a betting man, I'd probably say he'll stay, but because there is a world where he leaves. JB is interesting, and honestly, again, it could go any of the 3 ways, really. I think it's most likely, in my opinion, I'd say it's most likely and more sensible that he goes out on loan, because he was a very good player in a very poor Plymouth side. I mean, I don't quite know where that leaves him per se. He's not ready for Premier League football, I don't think yet. But I think Leeds would be remiss of getting rid of him at the moment. You can't just offload all your young players or sell too many of your future prospects.
Yeah, because there are late bloomers as well, aren't there? I mean, like,
Yeah.
as you say, JB did have a surprisingly good season last season. I mean, on Schmidt, I'd actually totally agree with you. I think, I actually watched him play for Switzerland, and he was perfectly adequate. Like, he did not look out of place at all. He didn't look below standard. We've got him for what, 3 million, 3.5 million. Keep him. He can play either wing, either fullback position. He's experienced. He had a bit of quality. He was playing in Europe when we bought him.
Yeah.
I think it's a no-brainer to keep him myself, and I do think as well it's probably an important point to make that although he didn't get a sniff for a good chunk of the season, the last 8 games he did play quite a significant role. He'd actually managed to gain Farke. Yeah, he gained Farke's trust and actually kind of was being put on much more towards the end of the season. And hopefully that just rolls into the following season or this season coming. But I think that's pretty much it from us.
Can I ask one question to you?
Of course you can. That's what I was about to say. Yeah.
What do you think about the new kit?
I think it's far too similar. It's a copy and paste job with some low field tunnel around it. It's funny because I'm 44 years old, so I'm trying not to care about it. But yeah, look, it's a white kit. It's Leeds. It's got a little bit of the low fields kind of localness about it. Yeah, it's fine. Whatever.
Yeah, fair enough. I know some people have said they've been really lazy. I think.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit lazy, if I'm honest. Yeah,
uninspiring. I think is probably that's it. But let's hope the away kit is something almost like the smiley last year. Something that's
So in fairness, the away kit last season was spectacular, and we saw that then come to fruition at the last game of the season against Bristol, where Elland Road was decked out in yellow. It's the first time I've seen that in a long time. It was beautiful. It was really beautiful. What a day. So before we go, I'd say everyone, please like and subscribe. Rumour has it every time you subscribe to Leeds That Podcast, Leeds put 4 million quid into the transfer budget. That's a complete lie, by the way. But if it makes you feel better, maybe it'll work. Isaac, one last thing. It's probably a bit of a sore subject. You're obviously a Liverpool fan. Liverpool have had a big tragedy this week. I'd like to give you a chance to maybe have a say on that. Obviously, Leeds fans very much in solidarity with Liverpool with regards to our condolences to the club about Diogo Jota, his brother as well. But obviously, you're a Liverpool fan and you cover Leeds. Would you like to say anything on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, when you hear the news, it's one of those where you just stop in your tracks, don't you? I think you'll always remember sort of where you were when you heard it, especially as a Liverpool fan. I mean, the heart goes out to the family. Absolutely tragic, and it sort of hits home as well because he obviously is a similar age to myself, and at the end of the day, footballers are paid whatever, but they are just human. Everyone's got a family, and just the tragic, what a tragic thing. It's horrible, but the outpouring of sort of love's been amazing to see. He was one of me and my dad's favourite players. Just so lethal. My dad actually scouted him at Wolves long before I even noticed, and he said, "Oh, Liverpool got to get him," and he did, and he proved to be fantastic.
He seems to be a lot of fans' favourite players. My nephew's a Liverpool fan. He loved them as well, and he was actually at Anfield for the last home game of the season. And one of his things was as soon as the news broke about Jota, he said, like, I got to see his last goal.
Right, yeah, absolutely, and it was almost a typical one of him, really, as well. He was just so lethal. He was just, you just knew that if a ball fell to him in the box, he'd finish it. But I think what's emanated this week as well is what a nice guy he was, and what a really good human being he was, and how much of credit he was to the family, to his loved ones, to the clubs he played for. And he'll be such a sore miss, to say the least. And you'd wonder how Liverpool players are going to really recover from it. But the best way, I suppose, is to honour his name by, playing for him and playing for his family. But huge loss and tragic news. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, all our condolences from everyone here at Leeds that to everyone at Liverpool and the Jota family. So yeah, before we finish it up, then there's never a good way to segue out of that, so I'm just going to block it and keep going. Content Creators Cup on the 20th of July. All the Leeds that podcasters will be playing. So myself, James, and Rocco are on team the Yorkshire Roses playing against the Peacock. It's 1 p.m. in the John Charles Stadium in South Leeds. £7 for adults, £3 for children. There is a bar, although don't let the kids drink in the bar. So Isaac, I'm flying over on the Sunday morning. I'll be playing. If you're around on the Sunday, come join us for a match and a beer. We won't even ask you to do a write-up or a review on a match.
That's change. No, brilliant. No, awesome. Good luck with it. Yeah.
Thanks very much. Isaac, before you go, do you want to give Leeds Live a plug? Again, a fantastic publication. I enjoy all your articles. And yeah, by all means, fire away there with a plug there for those.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, all my content is on Leeds Live. So if you just type in Leeds Live into Google or Leeds Live Leeds United, it'll definitely come up. I am on Twitter at Isaac Johnson LL, and that's where I post most of my stuff. I'm also on Blue Sky, but I'm a bit less consistent on there. So if you want my main stuff, go to my Twitter or go onto my profile on the Leeds Live website. Also, I've got an announcement to make shortly on a new sort of feature that I will be doing next season. Can't say too much about that yet, but stay tuned. Yeah, we're really positive and looking forward to this new feature. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled. Is that even a thing? It is peeled. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the saying. Yeah. I know. Absolutely, we'll look out for that with bated breath. And I can tell you guys, from a guy who speaks to Isaac behind the scenes, this man is ridiculously well connected within Leeds. His access is incredible. So if Isaac tweets it, it's probably true, and there's definitely something behind it. So guys, once again, thanks very much for joining us. We'll get you on again in a couple of weeks' time when hopefully we've signed Maradona and Pele, and the fans can finally relax.
Maybe from Germany. Maybe.
But for all here at Leeds, thanks very much for joining us, and have a great evening. Take care, folks. All right. End session. Thank you, Isaac, for that. Stop.